Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to the panel Activists, New Generation, Emergency Activism. So as we've just seen in the film, Dear Future Children, from the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong to global climate strikes to Russians protesting on the streets of Moscow against the invasion in Ukraine over the last few weeks, there's been a real explosion worldwide of youth activism in recent years. And as seen in Dear Future Children, I think it's easy to kind of think of these struggles as disparate and isolated in different countries, but they're very much interconnected. And I'm really, really pleased to be joined by three amazing young people who symbolise that interconnectedness today. I'm Cian Haynes, Editor-in-Chief at Gaudet magazine, a UK-based magazine committed to sharing the perspectives of people of colour from marginalised genders. And I'm just going to introduce our wonderful panel now. So we have Marina Al-Khawand. Marina is 20 years old and is the founder and executive director of MED Donations, a non-profit organisation dedicated to assisting all Lebanese people with their medications, medical treatments and surgeries, hygiene supplies and supporting the most vulnerable students with their education. MED Donations was founded directly after the tragedy that hit Beirut in August 2020 and was able to cover the needs of nearly 10,500 families since then. Raised in Beirut, Lebanon, Marina is not only the founder of MED Donations, but is also a law student, an English literature student, a teacher, a freelance editor, and a social media specialist, so she wears very many hats. As a motto, Marina believes that anyone, anywhere can be a hope creator, change maker, and lifesaver. Next, we have Paxton Smith. He joins us from Texas, USA. Paxton is an activist, a writer, and musician, and widely known for her valedictory address, which confronted harsh abortion laws in Texas. She's the co-founder of A War on My Body, which highlights many perspectives surrounding abortion, and currently serves on the board of directors at WRRAP, a national non-profit that funds abortions and emergency contraceptives. Her work has been covered globally by numerous outlets around the world, and as she is still a student, she's continuing her activism for reproductive rights, travelling the world and speaking out. And then last, we have the lovely Winnie Tushabe, who joins us from Uganda today. Winnie has 7 years of work experience with smallholder farmers in Uganda, holds a bachelor's degree in adult and community education, a permaculture design certificate, and postgraduate training in accounting and entrepreneurship. Winnie has worked with Youth Initiative for Community Empowerment, or YICE, for the last 5 years, and she has seen the organisation grow from a small pilot into an impactful social enterprise, where she is in charge of community organising, working with farmer groups, and training them on loan and savings. Winnie is passionate about improving livelihoods for rural women and always walks the last mile to identifying, enrolling and building the capacity in those in need of our support. So I think let's give a round of applause to our panellists who have joined us from all different parts of the world. So first, I'm going to ask each of them to share a little bit about the work that they do before we dive into some more general questions. And don't worry, there will be plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So Marina, I would love to start with you. You know, this session is all about emergency activism. And 2020, the summer, was certainly an emergency in Beirut. Can you tell us a bit about what made you spring into action to create MED Donations and fund that amazing organisation in the face of humanitarian disaster?
Thank you, Cian. Thank you, FIFDH. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. Well, after the tragedy that hit Beirut on 4 of August 2020, Amnesty.org reports that around 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded in Beirut. Around 300 million families got shattered and homeless. Around 2,217 lives died, and people died after the explosion, and 7,000 got injured. So the numbers are shocking. In 2020, living such devastating moment, the destruction of a whole city, the city that never dies, Beirut, was something shocking for everyone, and especially us as youth, as dreamers, as resilient people in Lebanon. Beirut, the cosmopolitan, as a small brief about history that holds several sects and around 2.2 million people, got destroyed 7 times in history, but has been rebuilt by the love, devotion, unition, and strength and devotion of its citizens. And now, after the tragedy and after the explosion, we couldn't stand still. The youth, every single citizen, every single individual in Beirut went down the streets and started helping out, started rebuilding our city by our own hands, and yes, alone. Where's the government? The government is inexistent. They are still trying to find what happened in Beirut on 4 August. They are still trying to find who to throw the blame on. By obstructing justice and concealing the truth, we were the only ones going down the streets, helping the people out, saving lives, seeing the injured, hearing every single scream, seeing every single tear, seeing people dying. It was terrible. We cannot ever forget these scenes from our memories. Can you imagine a young activist at the age of 20 seeing all this? I literally couldn't see this and sit down. I was shocked at first, of course, but the love and devotion that I had for my nation and still have times 1,000 now pushed me stronger and harder and gave me the full motivation to start a small individual personal initiative called Med Donations on 11 August 2020. And this was the turning point of my entire life. This special date gave me a special meaning for my existence, gave me the true meaning of what is to be a human being. Med Donation started by helping 10 families, and now, as Suyin said, we proudly help 10,500 families get their basic rights to access medication. And we are a small group of youth, of family members, supporting each other, believing in the mission and vision that every single individual, no matter the age, no matter their gender, no matter their religion, should get this basic right. And what urged us more is that many NGOs in Lebanon, and sadly saying it, are affiliated by political parties. They just give donations upon nepotism and favoritism. And they are known to be discriminated. So why all this? Aren't we all human beings? Isn't this a basic right for everyone to access freely, fairly, and equally? So from this, everything has started, and Med Donations has a proper mission and vision with a very credible and transparent program to continue and pursue with. And after a year and a half, we are still hopeful, regardless everything happening, regardless all the obstacles facing our way, and all the challenges. So we are acting and working hard for our nation as Lebanon.
Amazing. And like you said, it's a year and a half on now. And, obviously there are, significant conflicts happening in Europe too. There's news agendas, news cycles, maybe seem to have slightly moved on. And I wonder from your perspective, what action you think, because the film that we've just watched is so much about action. And what you've just talked about is action. What action do you think the international community and international media needs to take in order to support and keep drawing attention to the situation in Beirut and Lebanon?
Well, for the international community, Med Donations was funded by individuals living inside Lebanon and outside Lebanon. Well, the core and the main support of Med Donations is the expats and foreigners living outside Lebanon. Why and how? I'll tell you now. Med Donations on 4 August last year launched their first ever Med Drive, international Med Drive, which is a point of collection in a country that was Boston in the States, in which we launched what are the medications needed between chronic medications and over-the-counter medications. This Med Drive was organized by a Lebanon-American pharmacist, Nicole Smiha, and Dr. Shidai'e, in which Lebanese and non-Lebanese all human beings looked at a flyer, knew all the info, and dropped off the donations from medications to baby formula, to diapers, to medical supplies. Donations were gathered, around 100 kilograms of donations at first, and were sent to Lebanon by luggages, by direct passengers coming to Beirut. And all started from August 4, 2021, last year. And from this first ever med drive, now we are proudly launching 32 med drives in different 32 countries from the MENA region, Asia, Europe, America, and much more. And now we have a weekly med drive happening in Paris, led by Josiane Najjar, Jinan Milali, Corinne Ruyandet. So we have Lebanese and non-Lebanese. And as a total of donations, we were able to gather 10 tons of medical assistance to Lebanon, distributed for free to everyone in need, in all regions, from all ages, suffering from all types of diseases, in hospitals, in emergencies, at their homes. So the international community really have a big role in helping out the Lebanese in Lebanon in all means. And here I invite you all, whoever can, do the change and can be part of this big drive for human beings and not only Lebanese. What is happening in Lebanon doesn't only consider a nationality. What is happening in Lebanon is a crime against humanity. And all the human beings are invited, from you guys to everyone you know, to start a drive to collect funds, monetary funds, medications, medical assistance to support Lebanon and Med Donations' vision and mission. For the international media, allow me to add that talking about Lebanon, talking about the crisis happening now is very important, because by pressuring out for the system and over the system can really fight corruption in a way or another, can really raise the voice of the Lebanese suffering in such hard and unprecedented times. So we really count on every single media platform, international platforms, to raise the voice about all the crisis happening in Lebanon, because it's not only about medical crisis. We have economic crisis, fuel crisis, medical crisis, sanitary crisis. It's a bunch of crises happening at the same time. So no one can resist anymore. So this call is for you, to be the free voice of Lebanese living in Lebanon and everyone living in Lebanon. Because, as I said, it's a crime against humanity.
Thank you so much, Marina. I think the point you made about not being able physically to just stand by and do nothing is something that resonates with the rest of our panel. And I'd like to come to you, Paxton, to talk about this. Obviously, your work focuses on reproductive rights and reproductive justice, and a report from the New York Times just 2 days ago says that potentially by July, the US Supreme Court could very well likely have overturned Roe v. Wade, and that several states' legislatures are already moving to pass bills that are really restricting abortion rights. Can you tell us a bit about what the catalyst was for you to get involved in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, of course. My intro to activism started about 9 months ago. And it began when Texas passed the 6-week abortion ban. For anyone who doesn't know what this abortion ban was, it was passed in May. And it bans abortion starting at 6 weeks of pregnancy, regardless of whether the pregnancy was a result of rape or incest. And for a long time, I actually knew that abortion rights were under threat in the US, but a large part of me didn't believe it. I knew it, but I just could not believe that at any point in my life, it would be possible for the government to say, no, having children is not your choice, it's ours. You don't have a right to decide if you have children. That's the government's right to decide for you. I didn't believe that that could happen until the Texas abortion ban had been passed. And it coincidentally was passed about a week and a half right before my graduation, which I was selected to give a speech at as valedictorian. And I decided to switch my speech last minute to talk about just how inhumane this abortion ban was, and to show the very real and raw emotional impact that that has on me, and the knowledge of how that could impact my future and just completely change my life without my input or my consent. And that was my intro into activism.
So, I mean, I think we all have to start somewhere. And I think, especially for young activists, you know, getting involved in doing something and having that energy, as was said in the film, of doing and not just talking, not just listening to, you know, older generations talk, because there has been so much talk. I'm interested to know, Paxton, you know, having been an activist for 9 months and you're in college now, how are you balancing doing studies alongside speaking out? And have there been sort of any lessons that you've learned, maybe from people who have been in the movement for reproductive justice and rights for a longer time, or fighting this fight for decades? I'd love to know how that's kind of taken shape for you.
As a student, as a young person who is an activist, I don't think a lot of people really realize how much time and sacrifice goes into it. You have to miss a lot of parts of your life that maybe you had been looking forward to in order to bring attention to the fact that your rights are being taken away from you. And that's a very harsh reality to think of, because it's not necessarily really a choice that we were given. You just have to be an activist because you have to speak up, you have to advocate for yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And the problem is happening now. We can't wait till we just graduate college when it's convenient to be like, this is a problem, because it's a problem now. For the people that I've learned from, the older generation, I've discovered that the older generation is quite vocal on the abortion rights issue, because the same way that it's my issue now, it was their issue when they were my age. And they've been fighting this fight for decades and decades and decades. And it's just getting worse. We thought we had made progress, and it's just getting worse. And what I've discovered from them, and by talking to these older women, is that I've realized more so the gravity of the situation. It's more than just being forced into having children by the government. It's what happens behind the scenes to ensure that that doesn't happen to people. And a lot of these older women talk about their experiences where they risk their lives to have an abortion. Their friends risk their lives to have unsafe abortions because that medical care wasn't open to them. I've heard stories of people being left in bathtubs of their own blood because an illegal abortionist told them that they could help them, and they lied. They were in it for the money. And it's a very scary reality to know that our lives could be back on the line.
Thank you so much for sharing, Paxton. And Winnie, coming to you on the sort of personal level, the film that we just watched kind of reminded me of the film that you had appeared in last year, Bigger Than Us, which also featured several different activists fighting for different causes. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about your personal journey and your turning point, and kind of how your personal experiences have informed your professional work and your career as an activist.
Thank you very much. I'm Winnie from Uganda, and it's a long journey to reach where I am. But number one, this thing I'm doing of sensitizing the community about permaculture and regenerative farming started when I was young. I grew up in a family of 6 and a single mother. Life was not easy at all. I could go on an empty stomach at school, and I could walk miles and miles because my mother is an illiterate with nothing like a skill she can do to add if she fails in agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of Uganda, but the way we are doing it, I could say it is running insane, like it's mad. We have to incur much and we earn less. You incur in your much money, and then because the increasing rates in the farm inputs, is too much, so you find yourself that you cannot yield basing on what you're earning, you've invested. So it became a war. My mother wanted us to go to school, but the better schools were not there for free. I could suffer day and night to say that I attained education, and having nutritious meals was a tug of war. We never minded about having nutritious foods, but what we could think of is having what to eat. Just imagine, since morning up to now, you've eaten nothing, and tomorrow you have to go to school, and you have to foot miles and miles. So I promised myself that when I grow up and I get an opportunity of helping the generations to come, not to undergo what I went through, I will do it with the whole energy I have. That's why when I went to the university, I did a degree in adult and community education. It entails us on how to enter community, how to help these people, like how to be a job creator than a job seeker. And in so doing, I remembered what the dream of I was. The dream was to help the future generation not to undergo what I went through, because I know what it means to go on an empty stomach for a whole day, and it's like you continuing the same story. You sleep and you don't know what you're going to wake up and eat, but you feel like you have to attain education because it is your future. It was really hectic, tiresome, bothering, but I had to go to peruse through so that I reach where I am. God was on my side. I found a friend. We started a youth initiative for community empowerment. We are working with vulnerable groups. What I mean by vulnerable groups, especially the women and those at the grassroots, those that are left out by the government. In Uganda, there is a big difference. The gap is too big. Like, we're having the class that is having money and the class that is just on the grassroots. They think of nothing. If they get something to eat, it's the order of the day. So bridging that gap is to go on the grassroots and help these people have something they can do to earn a living. Then we thought of agriculture. How can we help our fellows attain something from agriculture? We started with sensitizing them about using the chemicals, but it was because I've told you the rates of buying these chemicals and farm inputs is too high. In 3 years, we saw that our fellows could never go on with doing it, like buying these chemicals every day, every time, and making it worse. It is not healthy. Like, if we eat these crops, they are not healthy to our lives. Then we thought that regenerative farming is the way to go. What do I mean by regenerative farming? Is going back to the roots of farming, how our grandparents used to do it. They used not to use these chemicals, but they could yield. That's why we thought of, and we were joined to a friend in Kenya. He is a permaculture trainer. He trained us on how to go permaculture, how to go regeneratively. We train people on how to make, in regenerative farming, it's where we train people on how to make their own fertilizers from locally available materials. We train them on how to plant trees, if like even the planting trees, the organic fertilizers, the pesticides, the soil regeneration. We do not entertain using the chemicals because we want a better future for ourselves. How can we attain a better future with ourselves being injected by chemicals? We prepare in our meals. It's like you're preparing poison to feed on. With time, you're going to die. Who will help the generations to come? I'm a mother now. I always think, how will my child survive in that condition where they cannot have food? I know what it means. I don't wish it to anyone else. That's why we think permaculture can help us. When Bigger Than Us came, I stood firm. I was pregnant. I was 8 months, but I had to see that opportunity can't go away like that. I had to stand. I had to shoot a video for 2 weeks, standing from morning to evening to see that my voice will one day be heard. And when the opportunity came, I had to use it with my full energy. That's why today I'm here, because I want to sensitize the community. Everyone, being an activist does not call for money, it calls for your energy. And in being an activist, it's not only that you have to go on the grassroots. If Winnie can go at the grassroots and train the people with hands-on, but you can do it. There are people that are having internet every day, every time. You go on roaming. Instead of posting things that will not help our future generation, why not posting something about climate change? Because climate change is not only in Uganda, it's affecting the globe. We have to wake up. We have to wake these leaders. In Uganda, I could say our leaders are in deep sleep. When I get a platform, that's why I call them. At least they will hear me. My voice will be heard in places where I cannot reach. That's why everyone should wake up, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of anything. You can stand up. You can read about how can we solve the problem of climate change. If we don't work upon it today and now, you could be surviving. But if you think of being a parent tomorrow, then think of how your child will be in this world that is so hectic that I don't wish you to go through what I went through. Please, let us wake up. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. And it's amazing because we spoke before we met here in Geneva, and you were telling me about how the farmers that you had initially worked with in the program in the early days are now training other people, and the same training programs are happening in refugee camps as well. So that's a kind of multiplier effect, which is so impressive. I'd like to just go on to a couple of more broader questions for all three of you, because I think maybe part of the reason why I was invited to moderate this panel is because of my own previous work, reporting for Time magazine on climate strikes, Fridays for Future, and various different youth and social justice movements around the world. And I think, it's elaborated really clearly in the film, I think especially through, all three stories, but something I've really observed is the immense pressure that comes with being a young activist, and the immense sort of expectation and visibility that you are under. And I wonder if you could all talk a little bit about how you've navigated those in different ways. Perhaps Paxton, we could start with you and how you've approached that.
Being an activist a lot of times comes with people looking at you and wanting to know what you think and counting on your perspective and your voice to keep showing up and be a fighter for your rights. A lot of people are counting on you to do your work. That is a big pressure of the young activism. I guess a coping mechanism, like I said earlier, is that sometimes you just have to make sacrifices to be able to show up for your cause. And that means that sometimes you can't be at everything that you want to be at.
Yeah, for sure. Marina, did you want to come in?
Of course, being a young activist is the responsibility on its own. It's a new life, a new perspective, a new experience, new commitments. You should be on the level. You should on the right level to be able to have the right things on the right time. You have the responsibility of too many people, of a whole community, of a whole nation. You're really looking forward and tackling rights of people. So it's something very huge on a very big scale. So no matter your age, you can do something. No matter your background, you can do the change. No matter what costs you, You can do it. So just believe in yourself and step the first step, and then after it, you can start seeing things elaborating and changing and start seeing the change as itself. And whenever you see the impact that you're doing and the mark you're doing in the life of every single person, this will give you the motive to continue. This will open the pathway along a very long journey in which you will find the energy without knowing. You will find the motive and the push without even asking for in every single individual that you meet. So being a young activist is a very long journey full of challenges and obstacles, but yet nothing is impossible. So take the first step and go on.
And how about you, Winnie? Does any of that resonate with you in terms of, pressure from community, pressure from, different aspects of life?
Being an activist, a young activist, actually being an activist is regardless of whether you're young or mature. Like it doesn't matter. When you start, you're young. When the age you're starting, for example, if you start at 7 years, you're young. And if you start at the age of 30 or 50, you're young because you're new in the system. But what I can urge everyone is, if you have started this thing, put it your whole heart. Like, do it not because you're having pressure or you want to show off. You have to do it with the inside of you. Let you communicate with your inner person. Like, if it's like, for example, I do this with agriculture. When I was growing up, I used to hate agriculture, and my mom used to beat me so much. When you have to wake up and go in the garden every day, if I think of going to the garden, I could cry. I could think of a disease that can attack me there that early morning that I miss out. But when I grew up, it was a calling. It's like part of me. Even if I run out of it, I can't run out of it. You're having also a voice that is ever calling you inside of you, that is calling you to do something. It's high time you wake up, do the calling. You will never know how it will come to happen. You will realize that people will tell you your abilities, minus you knowing that you've been doing it. I used to do this thing. I had the fears in me that I'm from a poor background. How will I do it? Who will make my voice be heard, loudly heard? But when I started small. I never looked at how short, how big, how beautiful I am. I wanted to see the earth being saved. And here I am, and because of what I'm doing, at least when you see that you've impacted something, it will give you the urge of doing it more and more. Every time you think that, for example, when we started with a small community in Kasanda district, and when we reached, we saw these refugees selling the crops, earning a living. It was the best moment I can remember that gave me the urge of doing it more and more. The pressures were left back, and then I could focus of how to expand. I'm happily communicating that we started small. In these 5 years they've been talking about, we have expanded to another refugee settlement. We started with a target of 200 in households in 6 months. In 12 months. And now we have reached 317 in only 6 months, meaning our work has been loved. But maybe somewhere, somehow, it's just we had not identified who we are and what we are doing can impact the community. You can also start it now, and you will see the beautiful yields you will get in future.
A key theme of the film, I think, was, especially in the Hong Kong situation, was the kind of interconnectedness and the role that social media and communications has played in activism in the 21st century. And I'd love to know for each of you, how social media has played a role in your own work, And I feel like, Marina, you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Well, yeah. Med Donation started as a page on Instagram, as an account, in which it was randomly, we shared posts, we shared some pictures and stories from Beirut, from the families, from every single family that we visited, some stories, some small actions on our stories and posts. We did some graphics. We didn't thought that one day we'll reach for 32 countries, for individual living in 32 countries. And we didn't imagine that we could be able to be today here. And that's all because of social media. So the first ever lunch and call from Med Donations was via an e-campaign launched on social media, via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So we all connected. And now I'm from Lebanon, Paxton is from Texas, Winnie is from Uganda, Suyin is from London. You are all here from different countries. So we are all connected by a click. So let's use social media for the positive benefits, to connect the world, for causes, to connect the human beings, to raise the voices, to make the call, to launch the call for every single human being suffering in whatever region, whatever area, whatever country, whatever was the suffer, whatever was the crisis, and whatever times. In one click, you can save a life. So here, I invite you guys to now open your phones and let's stay connected with Med Donations and the mission. Med Donations via all social media platforms to stay connected for the call of human beings all over the world. And now, today we're in Lebanon. Maybe tomorrow we'll be in another country doing the same emergency relief. So let's all take benefit of social media and just raise the voice and share our stories out.
I think, Paxton, you know a thing or two about going viral on social media. Can you tell us a bit about how it's sort of played a role in your work?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it pretty well, that social media gives you a really, really great chance to connect with people and share your message in a way that's just not possible otherwise. It allows you to have this global reach and a way to communicate with others. And so for me, a big use of social media is just being able to spread my message and reach significantly more people than I would be able to otherwise, and people with different mindsets, people with the same mindsets, and work with them and connect with them and learn their story. And for me, mostly social media at this point in time has just become a way to expand my own thinking and my own approach to activism, less so than it is to share my activism with others.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Sometimes there is definitely worth in, taking a step back and learning and reading and taking the time to get that perspective as well. Winnie, how has social media / the world of interconnectedness impacted you in your work?
Wow, this social media, it was good. Sorry to say that it was, but unfortunately in Uganda it has been banned. Facebook is banned for political reasons. Happily to say that the first donation we got, it was through Facebook, but now it is banned because of some political reasons. They are taking it like they are grabbing us the chance. It was the platform that could help you reach a bigger community than how you could. To join bigger than us, it was through these social media platforms. To be here, it was the same story. But now, being unlucky on my side, my hands somehow are tied. But it had really done a good job, and we could connect to people from far. For example, in the whole Uganda, we could sensitize some from far, and they started the practice because of the limited funding. For example, the funding we are having cannot exceed in a district, but through social media, we could do this, give them the skill, the training, the packages, but now, God knows.
Yeah, I think that shows the sort of promise and also how fragile that promise of social media can be. Winnie, I'd love to stay with you for this next one. I think a massive part of being an activist, especially the power of younger generations, is the ability to imagine and envisage new worlds. And I'd like to ask each of you, where you see yourselves and your organisations or your causes in 3 years' time. Winnie.
Thank you. To me, where I'm seeing in the next 3 years, number one is setting up a permaculture, a regenerative training center. Good enough, we have started. We want to set up a training center that will help people learn, especially the young children, to come and learn, put into practice. On that training center, we will be giving hands-on trainings, because what I've realized in Uganda, if you want to hide any information from us, just put it into writing and give us the papers. We are not so much into reading. It's not an hobby. But if you train us, you give us skills hands-on. For example, if you want me to know how to make the fertilizers, instead of you giving me these bullets on paper, just call me for at least 30 minutes and tell me step by step, mix this and this, do this and this. It will help me so much. And then, so that is number one. That's why I'm saying that in the 3 years to come, the regenerating farming center will be there, producing these organic things. They will be organic. Even if you get it direct from the garden, you have your salads there, it will not affect your life. And then another thing I'm looking at is making this more and more voice heard again, of calling people on how to go regenerative. It will, I'm seeing myself expanding not only in Uganda, but extending to other countries, and give the opportunity to everyone that will come across, not only in, for those that can have the soft copies and go practice, it will be okay on my side. But again, if you reach the regenerative center, still it will give you the breeze. It will be a changed community. For example, if you reach in a desert and someone has set up a training center that is so green, it will give you the morale of you going back home and practice the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Paxton, where do you see yourself in 3 years' time?
In 3 years, starting with the first part of the question, where do I see the movement going? I think in legal terms, I'm not super optimistic, if I'm being completely honest, about the future of abortion rights in the state, in my country. Right now, right now the Supreme Court is deciding whether or not to uphold the constitutional right to abortion before fetal viability, 24 weeks. And the Supreme Court is relatively conservative. 5 of the judges are very conservative, and a lot of people who have been involved in the reproductive rights movement for a long time think that the Supreme Court is going to overturn Roe v. Wade, which is what has established the constitutional right to abortion. And it's projected that 26 out of our 50 states are going to ban abortion or restrict abortion access to the point that people just won't be able to get the procedure. I anticipate that a lot of people are going to have reactions similar to I had when Texas passed the abortion ban, that it's going to be this flick of the switch, and we're going to realize that now is the time that we have to speak up, we need to organize, and we need to continue working against this removal of our basic human rights. So I see the movement continuing to expand and get more vocal, which is good and also worrying at the same time. I also do work with WRAP, which you mentioned earlier, the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. We are the largest national abortion fund in the United States. We fund abortions in all 50 states. So what I anticipate us doing is continuing to raise money and allocate funds to the remaining few clinics that will be open in the United States to allow people to make such a fundamental choice for themselves.
Sure. And Marina, what does the future hold for you in med donations?
Well, the future in Lebanon is super hard to predict because we're living day by day, unfortunately, with everything happening, but we're still hopeful, as I said. So we have two projects in mind. The first one is purely medical, in which to do a fixed and mobile clinic, free clinic for everyone, because now with all what's happening, the economic crisis, medical crisis, health crisis, no one can afford going to a doctor. The minimum wage is equal to one doctor's visit, which is insane. So people cannot do their regular checkups, their tests, go to hospitals, do the surgeries, do the treatments. It's insane. So the main project, and now this project is in a state of emergency, is to launch a fixed clinic. So everyone living in Lebanon can visit this free clinic and get free checkup, free tests, seeing all types of doctors, and taking also the medications from med donations for free. So it's a full cycle of health assistance. The mobile clinic is to reach rural areas in Lebanon and areas in which the government isn't covering anything in Lebanon on all areas, unfortunately. But rural areas are the most devastated ones, living under miserable conditions, which they don't have access to anything. So the mobile clinic will be able to circulate all around the rural areas and other areas to be able to give this healthcare support. Well, the second project is related to education, because now in Lebanon, in addition to the medical crisis happening, we are seeing lots of families forced to get their children out of schools. And also it's because of the economic crisis. And this really matters a lot because we are youth, we are young, I'm still a student, so a right for education is something on the top priority next to the medical field. So we are planning to do a small center in which will offer free education for the kids who are the most vulnerable and most in need. And this center will also provide them the access to know more about technology and tech devices, to be able to follow up with all the trends, social media, to be open-minded to the global recent improvements. So these two projects, hopefully, with the support of people like you, with the support of all international level communities and local level, hopefully we can reach, after 3 years, proudly saying that we were able to execute them and making them happen.
Amazing. To end on, I've been here at the festival since Saturday and tried to go to a film every day and we both actually went to the Red Cross Museum this morning, but at different times. I think what's really struck me this week is seeing, and has really moved me, is seeing both the worst of humanity and the best of humanity in the same situation. In a sentence, I'd love to know, for each of you, what gives you hope and keeps you going when you're up against the worst of humanity? No biggie. Paxton, do you want to start us off?
What gives me hope for humanity is knowing that people are always going to show up. We may not always have the strongest voice, we may not always be the people with a designated position of power, but we will always be here for each other in some way, helping each other out. And I think that's very present in your work and in your work as well, and in your ability to raise people's voices and give them a platform when they don't have one to begin with, when maybe they've been stripped of it from some systemic barrier that was imposed on them. And it gives me a lot of faith in the power that we can have in shifting our futures, to know that there are people who are always going to be here.
How about you, Winnie?
to me, what gives me hope every day is seeing that I've impacted someone. So that gives me hope to do it more and more. Every day I see that through the sensitization I make, the trainings I make, people can have a nutritious meal. For example, the refugees, the World Food Organization and other food aids, when giving food to these people, they don't think of the balanced diet. They think of giving portion beans. So just imagine yourself feeding on that every day. But whenever I see that at least they've been given beans and portion, and now I'm adding the vegetables on their meals, like it will be kind of balancing. And to those that have started selling, whenever I see these people selling these vegetables and earn a living, to buy books for their children, to buy the necessities, home necessities, it gives me hope that as I've helped these 5 households, maybe tomorrow I should wake up and help another 6th one to see that at least there is a change. Every day I feel like I should add on a block. I should not sit back and relax. And another thing that gives me hope that every time we think of an idea and it is brought on board and people are buying it. For example, we started another idea of training them in these skills like liquid soap making so that they can earn a living. I've ever washed my uniform without soap. Just imagine you're a primary kid, you pray, you sit in dirt, and then in the evening you come back home too dirty. You wash it with just water, and tomorrow you're going with it at school. It's so challenging. Now the trend, whenever I think that if my fellow, all my brother, I call them my friends or my brothers, and some of them are my parents, every day I see that because we have trained a group, like it was a pilot test, and I've seen these people have started making soap from their home, like it is on a cheaper price, and then we are doing recycling, and I see that these things are moving the community at another level. It gives me hope that if we continue thinking of how to help the community, if you think that maybe this ideas it will work and it does wonders on your side, it could be wonders on my side, and others they don't see value in it. But whenever I see that it has done magic to someone's life, I feel like I should not sleep that night. I should think of another solution ever.
So full of ideas. I love that. Marina, would you like to finish? And no pressure.
Well, what gives me hope is the smile and tear that I see on every single individual and patient that we give a medication. And every single call we receive, shouting and calling, "You saved my life." With a single box of medication giving this patient in desperate need. In addition to this, what gives me hope is seeing youth, my age, younger, older, doing initiatives, launching drives in their own ways, launching their own NGOs initiatives to help in any way needed. What gives me hope is knowing that tomorrow will be a better future for Lebanese and for the future generation. What gives me hope is that the impact we're doing is really making a mark and making a change and saving a life. So from here, I invite you all to be hope creators, lifesavers, and change makers.
Thank you so much to all 3 of you. It's been great to hear a bit about your journeys into activism, the work that you're doing, some of the challenges and some of the promises and possibilities for the future. Thank you so much. I think let's give a hand. We have some time for questions from the audience. I think there are some microphones out there. Yes, there is one hand straight up over there. Yeah. And please feel free to ask questions in French or English. We have the headsets here.
Hi, I will speak in English. Okay. My name is Antonella. Thank you very much. It was very impressive and very motivating to hear you all speak. I have a question for Winnie. A lot of the things we saw in the movie and in the things that you spoke about, as activists, you're often positioned against the government, against the authorities of your country, against the people who actually have the responsibility to govern your countries. In agriculture, we know that if we want to really go in a regenerative agriculture, it takes policy from the top down and practice from the bottom up. Where do you see your relationship, or what's your relationship with the government like? Is there any sense that you can have an influence on agricultural policy making in Uganda? Do you see anything move there, or is there a gap, or is there a struggle? How is that situation?
Thank you. The policies in Uganda regarding agriculture, I will not say they're like fundamental, like they're in existence, because for the work we are doing, like regenerative, it has been admired by the government, because we extended, as I told you, we extended our work to Nachiva refugee settlement, and working there you have to register with the government. So when we registered, we've seen the government officials calling us upon to extend, like as the target was 200, they are now calling us to extend, to do like to add on the numbers we had. So I think it's not like we are working against each other, but because we are young activists, as you've seen, all like many people are doing it and they are young. The only problem we're having, for example, in Uganda, like they don't consider the young activists as being able or in position of making a sustainable change in the community, like because maybe of the publicity and the exposure to the community, they think we cannot make it. That's why sometimes we have been limited. But I think if we can raise a voice, I'm alone right now, but I know this voice has been recorded, has been heard by many, and it's going to be repeating it, so like in different parts, it will reach the officials and they will come, I know, they will wake up. Like what now is needed is making them wake up from the deep sleep they are in.
Thank you so much for that question. Any more? There's one here.
Well, thank you very much for all three. It was a question linked with the kind of repression we've seen on the movie and all this repression from the police in the manifestations and all. And I was wondering, it's maybe more directed for Paxton, or how do you experience that, or do you have some experience of repression on your movement, and how do you feel it will go on this huge subject of abortion and how tense it is in the United States? And so, yeah.
At the moment, I don't see a lot of police repression going on, but the fear of the safety of activists, abortion providers is very real. I do a lot of communication with people who do work at abortion clinics, who are abortion doctors, and I don't know a single one who hasn't known someone or been the victim of death threats, who hasn't had a colleague who was murdered. Clinics are bombed, they are set on fire. To work in anything in the reproductive rights area, you take a risk and you're putting yourself in danger. And there is some very, very real fear there that has to be overcome if you want to help make a difference, or you have to be very strategic about the information that you share in public, what you are willing to have people know about you for your own safety.
Thank you so much for that question. Any more? Don't be shy. Or maybe do. Yes.
So it's kind of a way of continuing about the previous question. I mean, as a New European, we are fed a lot with images from the media like the mainstream media from the US. And it's been surprising how the youth has been so active. I mean, the anti-gun movement, for example, they have been so vocal, though, as the news keep on reaching us, it seems that like the mainstream media just sort of quiets you down. And I'm almost sure that the feeling in the US is not the same. So I was wondering, like, how does it feel like in the young activist movement? Do you have common actions, or are there workshops where you share strategies? Because, yeah, if you are aware and kind of look for your news elsewhere, you can be aware of what is done. But I think the mainstream media does a big disservice to the voice of the youth. So how do you deal with this?
I can definitely see the voice being quieted. A lot of the times, mainstream media platforms might have a certain agenda that they might want to push. They might ask young activists specific questions and only take what it is that they want the audience to see for whatever reason. Because of that, I think a lot of the very real activism that's authentic to young activists is shared through social media, which is a big part of why I'm so all about social media for my activism and expanding my thinking, is because that's where it's unfiltered. That's where it's real. That's where people have a platform that they don't necessarily rely on anyone else to give to them. So for me, that's very big. There are, as you mentioned, workshops where we might get to connect with each other. But the workshops, I would say, are more centered on learning how to organize and maybe setting up an initiative within your own community.
Marina, I wonder if you have any thoughts on that question as well.
Well, I guess as Paxton said, that people following the only source of information, the official source of information, will be much more helpful, because nothing will be filtered, but people will try to cross your road. Some medias will try to filter your work, because it's not of the favor of the government to do so. It's not on the favor of the corrupted people to give the rights for the people. So what we're doing also is being somehow oppressed in a way or another, because it was their plan to try to make it much harder to live in Lebanon by giving out the people, getting out of them from their medications, their basic rights, their sanitary products, their food, electricity, water. So nothing should be accessible, as they have the plan to do it. But as we interfered and we did med donations and we did the work, so it's somehow out of their plan. It was a surprise for them. So of course they tried to stop whatever we are doing in many ways, and this was a big challenge to continue and to be as credible and transparent and follow up by and backed up by too many things to be able to continue. So of course any act of defending human rights all around the globe will be oppressed by a party. It might be politicians, it might be individuals, not really having the same opinion and plan as you have.
Thank you for your question. Oh, yes.
Hi. So as they said in the movie, and you all mentioned it, that activism is a big part of your life. It's a commitment. It takes a place in your life the day you commit to it. I don't know if it is your case, but in a lot of cases, your family or friends might not be aware of your role, or might not agree with you, or might be afraid for your security or safety. So it is a commitment, but it can become a lonely part of your life. How do you deal with that?
Well, I'll start. My family was my #1 support. And whenever I was well inspired by my mom to start my donations, because whenever I saw the old lady in Quarantina area, which is one of the areas that was damaged and totally destroyed after the explosion, I saw a woman that takes the same medication as my mom. It was for asthma. So it started by a personal story and ended up to be a huge impact on the whole country. And my family supported in every single step. And it's still supporting. So I believe that having a supportive family in such cases is the key to success. And it's the pure motive that you will find security in your own family, that if the whole world was against you, you will keep on doing this fight because you have it back. So I believe that the support from your small family is everything.
To me, how you can deal with it, I will not say that I'm dealing with it, but a suggestion I should say, like, if they are against it, not everything we do has to please everyone, but if you're doing it for a good cause, I think it's a good choice to make. If you wait, if with the young people, our parents have been shy, have been having that stigma. They have identified something wrong, but they have no the vigor of coming out and open and talk about it. But it's now high time for us, this generation, to come out with a confidence. At least I just thank my mom that took me to school. I learned how to be empowered, like women empowerment. I was this girl who could not even stand before 10 people and say something. But when I learned about this empowerment, now I can speak something as long as it is for a good cause. If the family is not supporting and you do the right thing, they will see the products, the fruits that will come out of it, and they will just come to your back.
Did you want to add, Paxton?
No, I think
I've summed it up.
I summed it up, yeah.
Thank you for that question. I think we have time for one more, and I think gentleman in the blue jumper had a tentative hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Well, talking about activism in kind of in a hurry with all the oppression of environmental crisis and humanitarian crisis and all. And we're kind of reacting to that and trying to find solutions about this. And I really like that you've put some drops of hope within your talk. And I was wondering, maybe more for, not really Marina, of how do you see that in a long term, like where this activism in a hurry, how do you see it going long term?
Okay, so you're asking if it will be sustainable, right? Okay, so as I said, one of the projects is to have a fixed and mobile clinic, in which having a clinic, a free clinic, will transform our work in a hurry or our emergency crisis plan, still an emergency, to a much more sustainable thing. Because once you have a clinic, once you have doctors, once you have pharmacists and nurses giving medical and healthcare assistance, in addition to maybe elaborating more, enhancing more the clinic, to have maybe a small hospital, maybe, I don't know. But the future plan is always to enhancing the things to cover much more health assistance and much more medical care. But for now, of course, as you said, it is still in the case of emergency. It's not the case of a blast, but in Lebanon, we still don't have medications. We don't have paracetamol in our pharmacies. We don't have baby formula. We don't have diapers. We don't have chronic medications. Last week, a cancer patient died because she couldn't find her treatment and couldn't find her medication. And last month, a patient died because she skipped 3 days of her medication. So yeah, we're still in a case of emergency. So yeah, this will keep on going as much as we can. We will still still keep on collecting medications and donations for Lebanon because this is the only solution for now. Of course, it's not a rational solution. Of course, it's not a sustainable solution, but this is the only way to continue this situation with the less losses as possible. We are still losing lives. For sure, we cannot save all lives living in Lebanon, but at least if we know that our work can save 1% of the population, we will keep on doing it. If we know that our work will let a kid sleep securely and safely and having their own baby formula, then it will be success. If we know that a patient waiting now at this moment in front of a hospital to get their treatment and we can cover this treatment, then yeah, it's success. And it's something sustainable because you saved his life or her life. So, of course, now it's a state of emergency, but in the future, we have a plan to make it much more sustainable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. This has been Activists, New Generation Emergency Activism. I've been Cian Haynes, and thank you so much to my esteemed panel, Winnie, Paxton, and Marina. Thank you all. Have a good evening.